We don't have favorite teams at Idaho Sports. We love everybody the same. But there are teams that I feel for. And one of those teams I feel for is Homedale.
State of Ada? That's fake news, my friend.
Why he won that tournament the day they lost in the first round last year.
From the big boys in the SIC to the 1A wonders in the long pin, the Treasure Valley Prepcast has all of your District 3 athletics covered.
You go in the gym at Parma, and there's a couple of banners for other sports, and then there's a ton of tennis banners all over.
It's the Treasure Valley Prepcast with Logan Green on IdahoSports.com. Yeah, that's right. Welcome in another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, coming at you on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. We are broadcasting live. You can, of course, tune in anytime at those three destinations. You can also listen to this podcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts as well. Whatever podcast platform you like, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring in not Logan Green, somebody who is, I think, it's a major upgrade for the Treasure Valley Prepcast. Let's bring him in. It's Paul Kingsbury,
wow.
the head Rizzler.
Yes, and that is for my 15-year-old daughter who swore she would disown me if I actually put that up.
Okay. I do you know what Riz is, Paul?
Yeah, it's short. It's the, charisma head Rizzler. So I'm the head Rizzler here at IdahoSports.com. I don't know. I'm just trying really hard to be cool with my daughter. That's really all it is. That's
Rizzler, pull and peel. That's what I think of. Twizzler. That's what I think of. Or the Riddler from Batman.
Yeah. Well, hi. I'm happy to be here. I am not Logan Green. Logan Green's a smart man. He knows a lot, and he's a busy guy. And so we're hoping that me coming in doing this can kind of take one thing off of his very full plate.
Yeah. Can you give us a Logan impression?
Boy, that you caught me off guard. It's one thing it's one thing. NC State always gets screwed. And the owner of the Panthers, he just needs to go. He needs to go right now. How was that?
That was good. I got some Ted Lasso vibes from your, that was good though. Yeah.
Ted Lasso, Logan Green combination. I'll take it.
For sure. Well, this is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. It is presented by Meridian Plumbing. They pretty much anything we're doing in the Treasure Valley, Meridian Plumbing is involved, and they're helping us bring all this great content to you. But yes, Logan Green is he's also our sales manager at IdahoSports.com. He's been a busy guy lately, and so he was like, he would like silently help me. He would do that. No, I'm just kidding. But
Morse code during the Prepcast. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, he's super busy. Will we ever see Logan here again? Well, we're just going to take it week by week, and then we'll just maybe he'll pop on from time to time, but not for the foreseeable future. Right. I would say. So, Paul, let's give our audience. I think most people know who you are. I mean, you've been doing the IdahoSports.com thing for, I don't know, half of a 50-year stint here. I mean, we're 25 years and counting. But for those that are loyal followers of the Treasure Valley Prepcast, and they're like, who's this guy? Just give us a quick introduction to yourself.
I grew up, graduated New Plymouth, left, don't plan on moving back ever. Live in Kuna now. Raised kids here in Kuna, love it here in Kuna. Been doing Idaho sports, like you said, for a very, very long time. Started as a hobby, turned into a job. And since about 2002, 2003, that's what I do all day, every day. So that's me. I'm not an expert on any area of the state. Kind of like Logan mentioned in the pregame, we don't have favorites. Of course, we all do have favorites, but we like to say we don't have favorites. And we cover the whole state. So so even though I live in Kuna, I root for everybody in Kuna. Actually, I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but Kuna's had a pretty good season so far.
Yeah, that 6A Southern Idaho Conference in football has kind of been flipped on its head compared to preseason projections, with a couple of notable exceptions at the very top. Right. But I think this is going to be great.
There were a lot of teams. I know after that, and we'll talk about this. That Middleton game, I was talking to Andy Ankeny, the AD, and he knew that CUNA had beaten Owyhee, and I think a lot of teams are really happy about that because it makes their losses to Owyhee not look so bad. At this point in the season, on those Max Preps rankings, if CUNA keeps going, well, then it's that could change depending on what the ranking ends up. But as of right now, I know there's some teams that lost to Owyhee that are going, okay, that doesn't hurt us quite as bad as we thought it would.
Yep, it's going to be interesting to dissect all of that for sure. But rest assured, if it's a big event happening in the state of Idaho in terms of athletics, well, Kingsbury is probably going to be there. So. Let's talk about, I think one of, there's probably, you could make a top 10 list of the biggest events that Idaho holds or conducts every year. The Bob Firman cross country meet is somewhere on that top 10 list, just the sheer size and amount of teams that are coming in to compete in this thing. It's always held at Eagle Island Park, state park there where is Eagle Island Park officially located, Paul? In Boise?
Eagle.
It's in Eagle.
Crazy. Yeah. In fact, it's really, it's pretty close to Eagle High School. It's just south of Eagle High School across the highway.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, there I'm showing I don't know the Treasure Valley that well. That's why I have to have an expert. I mean, all the other places I've been to enough and have lived, but Treasure Valley, and
Eagle Island State Park isn't a place where you would just go to. I mean, even if you're going to Eagle High School, it's hidden back there. I had two kids run Bob Firman when they were in high school, and it's a massive event. I'm a guy who hates other drivers, and so the parking at Eagle Island is terrible. There's like one or two ways in. One way is somehow always closed. I hear they opened it up this year. It's a madhouse, but once you get in there, it's a great course to run. It's this state tournament course. And so, Bob Firman has just grown and grown and grown to include 166 teams this year from all over the place. So it's definitely one of the premier cross country races in the Western United States.
Yeah. 7 states, 166 high schools, more than 5,000 athletes competing at this year's Bob Firman.
That's insane. A lot of kids running around for sure.
Yeah. It's so big that there were 8 varsity races. There was the elite division for boys and girls, which is the creme de la creme. A lot of Utah runners ended up doing well there. Then you have your varsity Division 1, which is strictly just your 6A, 5A schools. It's not
right.
And we talk about this during the Tiger Grizz cross country meet that we broadcast in East Idaho. It's not these teams are better than the teams in Division 2. It's literally just school size. So, But there's so many of those bigger schools that they have to separate it alphabetically. So there's a race of schools A through L, and then there's a race of schools M through Z, which is crazy.
Yeah. And then they just take the top times out of those two essentially heats. And that's where you land. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a race divided by alphabetically. Usually it's one way or another. So, but you get that many kids, you've got to get creative.
Yeah, and then they had one section each, boys and girls, of the Division 2, which is your 4A and smaller division, school size there. In terms of like the top storylines, we had some pretty impressive finishes. We didn't have any champions. We had one team get really close, but I thought the easiest way to dissect all of this data was to just start at Division 2, work our way up to the elite races to finish off. Does that sound all right?
Let's do it.
Okay, so boys varsity Division 2, McCall Donnelly, the highest placing team, Paul. They finished in 6th place with 257 total points. There's going to be a lot of meets where the 6th place team doesn't score that many, but because there's so many teams, the point allocation has to go somewhere. So McCall Donnelly takes 6th as a team, and they had 2 individuals in the top 10, Paul.
They did. They had Charlie Spears, and they had Jacob Mascheroni. Now, Charlie, he was, I think, number 4th in 4A at Bob Firman. He ran like almost 16-11. He's a sophomore, and Jacob Mascheroni, a junior. In fact, a lot of these kids we're going to talk about, they're juniors. It's just the cream of the crop are young this year, which is going to be an exciting cross country statewide for the next couple of years.
Yeah, Spears took 2nd. Mascheroni took 8th. Landon Hillam from Fruitland took 4th overall. Spears, especially, that's a name that track fans will remember from last year. McCall Donnelly won their first boys track and field state championship a season ago. And so it makes sense that it would then translate over to cross country.
Gavin, Gage, what was his name?
Gabe.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's in high school sports, you see the family names trickle down year to year. Yeah. Now, just real quick, I'm going to throw some trivia at you. Do you know who the probably the most famous person that ran cross country at McCall Donnelly is?
Not sure. I don't know. Not
Tori
Gabe
Wilson.
Spears.
Tori Wilson from the WWE, the female wrestler, model, fitness. Tori Wilson went to school at McCall. She's always listed as Boise, but she was same age as me. And my best friend Dustin came from McCall, so he was friends with her. So every cross country meet, we'd get together and hey, introduce us to Tori. And then she went on to become a big star. So yeah, Tori Wilson ran for McCall Donnelly back in the early 90s.
Well, now it makes sense that you come strutting into every meeting like you're Vince McMahon. I mean, now it.
Darn right. And actually last year for his birthday, I did one of those cameo video things. I paid for Tori to make him a video, which was pretty cool. And so she remembered him, and it was fun. It was fun. She's doing well. So anyway, just a little piece of trivia there for everybody.
Yeah, good to know. So yeah, McCall Donnelly did pretty well in that boys varsity Division II. On the girls' side, the highest placing team was also McCall Donnelly. They took 7th. Now, how about this? They actually scored fewer points than the boys. They scored 242, which is good in cross country. You want a low score in cross country. 242 points to 257 for the McCall Donnelly boys, and yet they finished one slot lower. The girls took 7th, the boys took 6th. Obviously, tougher competition on that girls' side.
Tougher competition. You've got your 1 through 5. They take the scores, but if you're 7 and 8 run faster than another team's 1 through 5, then their scores will go over top of them. So if you've got a quick 7 and 8, that those are the best teams. When you've got a quick 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the teams that are going to win as teams. You can always have a quick 1, 2, great. They'll get the individual stuff. But if you've got 1 through 8, yeah, you're gonna go far.
And the top individual from the Treasure Valley competing in the girls varsity Division II took first place. Megan Atkinson from Parma in a time of 19:11.8. That's awesome. Way to go, Megan.
And she's the sole senior with these kids we're going to talk about. She's the only senior and number 1 in 1911. That's a good time. Good time.
Yeah, nicely done for the Parma Panther, Megan Atkinson. Okay, if we move up to Division I now, and again, this was so big, they had to separate it into 2 separate heats, basically A through L and then M through Z. But then they took everything and collated it all together. So when they did that, the highest placing team on the boys' side for the varsity Division I was Meridian. They took 15th overall, 496 points. Now, we should add that a lot of the Meridian runners, especially like Nate Stadlanter, who's one of the best cross-country runners in Idaho, obviously they were competing separately in the elite race. So that may have affected Meridian's team score a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. He's number 1 ranked in 6A right now in the state. He got a 15:08. That's a low 15. Back in my day, you got in the 16s. You were fast. And it's just like everything else. Professional athletes, college and high school, they're just getting faster and stronger with all those great preservatives and everything else in the food. I'm not sure if that's good or not, but they're definitely faster. And he, like you said, he is definitely a fast one.
Yeah, I don't know if the preservatives. We'll have to see what the scientists have to say about that.
Depends on the scientist. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. You can't just follow the science, we've learned. So, okay.
No,
If we say any more, I'm going to get us red flagged on YouTube.
I know, you're right.
So Meridian takes 15th overall as a team. Top individual in the boys varsity Division I heat was Grant Mayberry from Hawaii. He took 6th overall. On the girls' side, highest placing team was Bora. They took 11th in the varsity Division I competition, 346 points. We had one Treasure Valley runner finish in the top 10. It's a familiar name to us, Paul, because she won her race at the Tiger Grizz a couple weeks ago over in Idaho Falls. Annie Hurd from Centennial takes 3rd overall.
Just a junior. Yeah, she won that varsity A race at Tiger Grizz, the championship. We were right there at the finish line. Actually, our rider, Marlo, had a pretty good video of her coming across the finish line on her X account, so you can check that out. And she was also in the wrap-up that she did on Idaho Sports. So, yeah, we go to a few of these, and you start. It's like wrestling tournaments. You see those same names popping up at the end of the event.
Centennial has a little juice going this fall with cross country, certainly, and volleyball as well. Centennial's volleyball team, very good. They just beat Eagle last night, that's a pretty significant win for the Patriots.
Eagles had a good volleyball team for 10 years, 12 years. I mean, it's just every year they're nationally ranked sometimes. So, yeah, go Centennial.
Yeah, the Cen 10 Patriots. Okay, on the boys' side now to the elite division. This was they took the best times and threw them all in one big race. We had Rocky Mountain place highest in this competition. They took 3rd overall with 172 points. No surprise there. Rocky Mountain is probably a top 10 team in the entire Northwest in terms of like Washington, Oregon, Utah, etc. They still are 2nd in the state of Idaho behind Coeur d'Alene because Coeur d'Alene went and won the Northwest Regionals last year. But I can't wait for Rocky and Coeur d'Alene to battle at the 6A state meet a little bit later on this year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's always fun to watch those battles, and it's a 15, 16-minute battle. When you think about it, you go to a football game, it's a couple hours, a basketball game. These are 15-minute battles, and they're won and lost in a very short amount of time. Brandon, you look at Stadlander, he got 16th at state last year, and teammate Cody Lucas got 7th. And now, Nate put in the work. I mean, not that Cody didn't, but to turn around and get a 15:08, number 1 ranked in 6A, you have to give some props when kids put in the work to better themselves. And just a junior, he and Cody Lucas are both juniors. Coming in, as well as, Sheasley of Boise, who came in 7th in that thing. So, Rocky Mountain, good this year. They're going to be good next year.
Yeah, those top 3 finishers from the Treasure Valley. Stadlander from Meridian took 3rd overall. Sheasley from Boise took 7th. Cody Lucas from Rocky Mountain finishes 10th. And then in the girls' elite division, we also had 3 individuals hit that top 10. Paisley Taylor from Meridian takes 5th. Audrey Orm from Boise, that's a name we're used to hearing a lot in track and cross country. She took 6th. Hallie Heemeyer from Rocky Mountain. Her older brother, Landon Heemeyer, was a great runner for Rocky, and he just graduated last year. So Hallie Heemeyer takes 9th. But really what was interesting on the girls' elite side, Paul, was the team race.
It's always fun to have if you've got like conference opponents that you're close with in a race like this. Boise 2nd, 105 points. You had North Logan 103, then Rocky Mountain with 111. So 6 points differentiated between Rocky Mountain and Boise. How cool is that in an event this big to come that close to a conference rival? Yeah, and they still have a couple races left. I mean, it's rivalries in cross country are just as big as they are in any other sport.
Yeah, Green Canyon High School from North Logan, Utah, won it at 103. Boise so close, 2 points behind to take 2nd.
Are you telling me they couldn't have one runner run just a little bit faster? That's what they say on the sidelines. You're still standing. You didn't give it all. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's one of the few sports where you just collapse at the finish line. And There's a lot of tears, sometimes tears of joy, sometimes tears of despair, depending
sometimes
on each.
Liquid leaving the body. I mean, they puke in the can there, and they're crying, and they're trying to get stood up. And yeah, cross country, it's the sport where you run until you puke. All right. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, you were talking a little earlier about preservatives and that aiding today's athlete. Joel Richardson, who's going to be hosting the East Idaho Prepcast later on tonight here on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account, checking in the chat. Joel says Cheetos definitely are making that 15:08 happen. So there you go.
Yeah, I guarantee Joel was a cross country runner. He's got that slim physique. He doesn't have hair now, so he's pretty aerodynamic, but I like it. I think Joel is probably onto that. I don't know if they were the fiery Cheetos or the normal Cheetos, maybe the puffs. Who knows? I know that it's pretty nutritious.
That runner listened to the wrong science, Joel said. All right. Well, so yes, congratulations to everybody who came and competed at Bob Firman. I'm sure Joel is going to talk about it on the East Idaho Prepcast tonight, but Sugar Salem came over and won the titles for their respective level at Bob Firman. So just outstanding performance by Idaho all around there at the Bob Firman Cross Country Invite. All right, let's go to football, Paul, where statewide last week there were 15 games that were decided by a single possession. That's a lot. That's a lot for a Friday night.
Well, it's a lot for this point in the season, right? So last week or week before, I guess, was kind of the midpoint. And now most teams are getting really into the meat of their conference schedule. And a lot of times they schedule things where the first few are not as bad. It doesn't always happen, and it can't always happen because of scheduling. But a lot of times you don't see those really close ones yet. And the fact that we did means that we're in for some really good games the next 3 weeks as well, this weekend included. But yeah, there was a couple that we're going to talk about that were extremely close, that were maybe surprises to some, surprises not. But yeah, having that many close games across the state is pretty impressive. I like the state of football in the state of Idaho right now.
Yeah, I know in the rundown I included 2 of the 3 like tight finishes, but there was also, I might just spring it on and we can talk about it quickly, but Emmett and Valley View also came right down to the wire as well. But we'll start. Go ahead.
That's an interesting matchup in that conference too. I mean, you've got those, 4, 5, 6s that every game matters, and it matters to everyone else they played because of those max preps rankings.
Yeah, it's all going to matter. So let's start with the game you were at. This was a 6A. I thought probably one of the best 6A matchups statewide. It was the game we used for our IdahoSports.com Pick 6. It was Meridian and Middleton going to an all-time classic overtime battle. And we have seen this. We saw it 2 weeks ago with Post Falls and Lakeland in North Idaho. We saw it with Pocatello and Sandpoint. Basically, the team that scores second or late then lines up and goes for 2. They're either going to get the win or they're going to take the loss. And Middleton holds on and wins by a point in overtime over Meridian.
And it was so close. I mean, it was 21-14 at half. It was 24-24 end of regulation. No team led by more than a touchdown through the whole thing. It was an exciting game. It was two kind of styles. Meridian. Zeke has an arm. Martinez, that kid can throw. He completed 17 of 23, I think, 180 yards somewhere in there. 3 touchdowns, ran for 1. Kid can throw. Now on the other side, Middleton, they've got a run game. They've got a very good run game. As we saw, Perez, he was our player of the game. I mean, he had 100 plus yards, a couple touchdowns. But as they came down at the end of the first half, Middleton had, less than a minute left. And I'm thinking, well, there's not much they can do here. In fact, I think I said it on the air. Then they come down and end up scoring to prove me wrong that they had this 40-second, playbook on them. Well, then at the end of regulation, it was kind of the same thing. They had about another, 115 seconds or so. Bam, come down, and here we are. So, and then in the overtime, they did go back and forth. And going for 2, as they were lining up for two, I loved it. I mean, I'm a guy that's go for the 2-point conversion. If it's 4th and 3, go for it. And as Zeke was making that pass across his body, I got to get his name, Weston Mills on defense. And Mike Leclama, the Statesman, had a really good video of this that he took and he put it on X. But you see him running in front of the receiver back of the end zone, and the receiver has him beat. And Zeke barely throws behind him. Weston just dives, knocks the ball out, game over. And Middleton erupted like it was a state championship. It was crazy. It was a big game for both of them. Meridian especially, they've got that big losing record. They needed that win to kind of stay alive in that conference. Middleton needed it for everything. The morale they have now, the boost that they get from that beating Meridian, and that hasn't happened. So it was an exciting game to be at for sure, and to end with an overtime pass in the end zone, could have done it. It was great. You couldn't have asked for more in that football game.
Yeah, Meridian took their first lead in the third quarter. Spencer Walker comes on and nails a 40-yard field goal, which was pretty impressive. Middleton answered with 4:49 in the fourth quarter, tied it up on a 35-yard field goal from Tyler Robinson. And then that's when we went to overtime. Braden Stike. I think it's Stike. Okay. Stike. Yeah. He runs in the touchdown for Middleton on their opening possession of overtime. And so then Meridian
touch of the night, I believe.
Yeah, which is just incredible. And then so Meridian gets the ball in overtime. They score. Zeke Martinez finds Dahani Alvarado. And then they, like you said, Coach John Zamerlin decides to line up and go for two. And so you mentioned Mike Leclama from the Idaho Statesman had the great video of it. He had a nice write-up about it as well in the Statesman. And it sounds like on that Middleton defense, conflicting coverage calls were being yelled by players and coaches. So right, I can understand why Weston Mills was like, what am I doing? Like,
where do I go? Well, he chose, he had a 50-50 and he chose right, because he was in that front right part of the end zone. And as the offensive player, bam, ran across, he followed him. And luckily, like I said, it was great pass defense. The throw was just a little behind the receiver. That allowed Mills to get in there and get his hand in. And just like that, Middleton finally got the win.
Yeah. So what does that all mean for the 6A Southern Idaho Conference? Well, it's been all chalk so far, Paul. If we look at the two divisions, Foothills Division, River Division. In the Foothills Division, Rocky Mountain, Timberline, and Middleton are all 2-0. Meridian, Capital, and Centennial are all 0-2. And then in the River Division, Bora, Eagle, and Cuna are all 2-0. Boise, Owyhee, and Mountain View are all 0-2. And if anybody says that this is how they saw the 6A SIC playing out when the season started, they're lying.
They are absolutely lying. Absolutely. And you look at, last week it was Rocky. I think they played Centennial. Timberline played Capital, right? Top two, bottom two, and the middle two played each other. And everything, those games went the way they did. Next, Middleton hosts Timberline, homecoming, and Meridian hosts Rocky Mountain. So that's going to be a tough one this weekend for both of those teams. Timberline coming out 4-1, 2-0 on the season right now. I mean, how great is that for Timberline? It's been a day or two. So, and watching Rocky 5-0, 2-0, Meridian's got their work cut out for them, especially coming back from that overtime loss.
I'm really excited to see how Rocky Mountain does here. They are, to me, I think, the top team in 6A football in the state of Idaho right now. Just looking at what they have on paper, the results that they've had so far.
Joel's going to have something to say about that during his prepcast.
Well, so coming into the season, I thought it was a big three statewide. I thought it was Rocky Mountain, Rigby, Coeur d'Alene in some order. I still feel like that is the top three. But Rigby and Coeur d'Alene have both stubbed their toe a little bit. Rocky hasn't been tested yet. I mean, and to be fair, Capital, Centennial, those are the two teams that are at the bottom of the standings in their win list. Those are Rocky's 2 wins. We're going to find out what type of team Rocky is because they finished at Meridian and then 2 home games with Middleton and Timberline. So this will tell us what kind of team Rocky is. But so far, boy, they look pretty good.
Well, there's a few games like that this weekend. For instance, our Gem State game of the week is Rigby at Highland. Rigby 4-1. It's their first conference game against Highland, who's 6-0. So is Highland really that good? I mean, there's going to be a lot of games this weekend that that prove some people right and prove some people wrong.
It's going to be really interesting for sure. And of course, we're going to talk about all of it on Gem State Game Day. That is our new show we're launching this fall, where we every Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time, we come on and preview all of the exciting, juicy high school football matchups. This week, Paul, we are going to start breaking out the playoff brackets. If the playoffs started today,
Brackets Baney.
Here's what that's the rule. We get to October and Brackets Baney emerges from the shadows. So
yes, and I think there's so many people around the state to look forward to your feature that Brackets Baney and because you break that stuff down so completely. You're a savant when it comes to that to the brackets, and there's so many guys like you that just eat that stuff up, and so you do a huge service to the state of Idaho by putting that together all the time. And no matter how much time it takes, it's very cool. It's something that not a lot of guys can do. So you need to get some kudos for that, but it's also something you like doing, which makes it even better, right?
Right.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, kudos to you as well from Joel. Head Rizzler makes a good point. A lot of parity right now across all classifications in Idaho. Super fun. Yes, it is. Let's continue because there was a couple more 1-possession games from the Treasure Valley this past week. The other one we really wanted to drill down on was at the 5A level in the 5A Southern Idaho Conference, where Nampa escapes a slippery contest with Skyview 31-28, comes on a walk-off field goal as time expires for the Bulldogs.
Now, can we really call it a walk-off? I mean, I've seen this called. Can we really appropriate that from baseball? It doesn't feel right calling it a walk-off field goal. I've been thinking about this ever since I read it, and I'm like,
a game-winning field goal as time expires.
Okay, it might be a little longer to say, but yeah, Mackay Venegas, I believe, nails it. Last second field goal, 31-28. And you have to look at the past. If you frame this with a sense of history, Skyview has given Nampa a lot of losses over the years. Skyview's been a very good program. They're 0-5. It's not a place they're used to being. I mean, I think they were there a couple of years ago, but overall, it's not a place that Skyview is used to, and it's for them. It has to be frustrating. David Robinson there, they lost to Emmett the week before, 48-44. So a 4-point game. They scored 44 points. They lose to Nampa, 31-28. They scored 28. So they're able to score points. They're averaging 20, but they're giving up 30. So even though they had a lot of defense come back from last year, some all-conference honorable mentions, for some reason that defense is allowing points to go up on the board at pretty inopportune times as well. But their offense seems to be doing well, but that they just need their defense to catch up. But Nampa, they celebrated. You look at social media for Nampa, and they were putting graphics up all over the place. I mean, it was a big win for Nampa. That's always a big win for them.
Yeah, it puts Nampa in a pretty good spot under first-year head coach Ty Thomas. They're now 3-3 overall, but 2-1 in Southern Idaho Conference play. We just talked about Middleton. Nampa lost by a field goal to Middleton 20-17 earlier this year in a non-conference battle, and they only lost to Bishop Kelly 19-0 last week. I think this is a Nampa team that is very good, very stealthy, very dangerous. And if they can get ahead of steam, I think they're the kind of team that could go on the road somewhere in like the first or second round of the playoffs and upset somebody.
And good for them. I mean, I like seeing these teams that, okay, you're not winning, get better. And they did that. They are getting better. They've got a little bit of a tough road. Most teams have about 3 games left, and they've got Ridgeview which on paper, but then they've got Emmett and then Valley View. So Valley View in second, that's going to be the question mark for them in that last game of the season. It's always great when the last game of the season means something too. That's always fun. So, you talk about this week is going to be good. I think the next 3 weeks, and a lot of times, like just in a quick example, we used to do our broadcast schedule, the entire football schedule was done. But then we would get to those last 2 or 3 weeks and there was crappy games instead of doing the good ones. And that seems to happen. This year, I think more than I've seen in the past many years, these last 2-3 weeks are going to mean more with these games being played than they usually do. Instead of just being stink bombs that are blowouts and nobody cares, these last 1, 2, 3 weeks, they're all going to be important.
Yeah, it's all going to mean something down the stretch here. There's no doubt about it. You mentioned Emmett and Valley View and Nampa. Those are the 3 teams that ultimately I think are going to compete for second place behind Bishop Kelly in this standings. The first salvo was kind of delivered last Friday. Valley View beats Emmett 18-14. As somebody who picked Emmett in the IdahoSports.com pick 6, I was feeling okay about Emmett. It was a tight game, low scoring game, obviously, all throughout. And I was like, okay, Emmett's going to hold on and win this thing, and I'm going to get a pick. Correct. And then Onyx Carson scores on a 1-yard touchdown run with 13 seconds to play to push Valley View in front 18-14. And the Falcons, under first-year head coach Shea McClellan, they just keep on winning, Paul. They are 3-1 overall, 2-0 in the Southern Idaho Conference. Their only loss this season came to Bora, which is a big 6A power. I'm really bummed that their season opener against Twin Falls got canceled due to smoke, because I think Twin Falls is a pretty good team, and I would have a better gauge on where Valley View is as a team. But
and bringing in Shea McClellan, how big is that? I mean, just knowledge and to me, confidence is such a big factor especially in high school sports. And you bring in a Shea McClellan, and your confidence is already kicked up a notch. Just because it's Shea McClellan. Another quick story. I'm 1-0 in all-star basketball game coaching because of Shea McClellan. Back in the day when he was in high school, I coached an all-star basketball game at TVCC, and my game plan was basically give Shea the ball, and he ended up winning the game for us, and I retired as an all-star basketball coach at 1-0.
That's awesome. And
he basically owes his NFL success to me. What I'm saying.
Yeah, it was that good coaching right there at the grassroots level. But just the day and night difference to me of how the program is. And again, I'm from 10,000 feet. I don't see everything up close, but like last year, Valley View had a guy coaching him, Bryony Robinson. It just seemed like an odd fit to me at the time. He's a guy who had been around in Oregon a lot. We always send out a preseason questionnaire to all of the football coaches for our statewide football previews. And he kind of barely filled his out and sent it back and was like, don't ever ask me to do this again. I don't want to talk. And I'm like, that's weird. I'm just asking you to promote your players. I'm not asking you to talk about you. I'm asking you to talk about your team. Shea McClellan is a complete 180. I ask him anything. I send him an email. He comes back with more information than I could have ever asked for. Right. And so it's just a day and night difference to me, at least in terms of how they work with the media and promote their programs.
And before that, Coach Coffin, Lane Coffin was there forever. He was at Century before that. And Coach Coffin was always great. We would send stuff, bam, he would send it right back. And so even though they don't really correlate as far as, if the coach gets us information, that makes their team good. And if they don't, they're bad. But it's the attitude of the coach overall that can have that effect. So there's not a direct correlation, but I think there's a correlation between the coaches that want to promote their kids, their players, their program, they're involved, and teams that are successful. And it goes back to that morale and confidence that I talked about before.
Yeah, for sure. So congratulations to Valley View for that tight win. 15 one-score games around the state. 6 were from the Treasure Valley. We talked about Middleton, Meridian. We talked about Valley View, Emmett. We talked about Nampa, Skyview. I'll just mention the scores. We don't have to dive into it. But we also had Nampa Christian Nip Melba 20-14 on IdahoSports.com. That was our Treasure Valley game night broadcast. We also saw Weiser sneak one out against McCall Donnelly by a touchdown, 27-21. And in 8-man action, a game our own Will Hennicky was at for a little bit, Wilder beats Idaho City 36-30. So good football all across all levels this past week in the Treasure Valley.
And in my brain, I was really thinking that I picked Wilder for that pick six every week. And I'm like, yes. No, I did not. Yeah, that was kind of frustrating.
Yep.
Oh, good for them. Good for them.
We have one final request here. James Yoakum, talk about Council, please. Okay, let's talk about Council real quick.
Great
Council
turkey hunting up there. Beautiful. I think the smoke's died down. Gary Jones's wife, Penny, is from Council. Our own Clay Hatfield is from Council. What else do you want?
Yeah, that's so with Paul as the new, so Logan would have taken this and just, oh yeah, Council, I love going there, and you of course are Mr. Sarcastic, so when you're gonna send a request, you have to be more specific. Council football, I'm
Council
sure
football.
He wanted us to talk about,
because we can talk about the girls basketball team all we want, because there's a lot to talk about there, but we'll get into that during basketball season.
Well, and their volleyball team is excelling again, which is no surprise. They just play in the same league as Horseshoe Bend, which is also excelling at an all-time level. This is a Council football team that is 3-1. I will admit their strength of schedule has not been the most rigorous. Lewis County is winless.
Correct.
Horseshoe Bend has struggled this year. Notice has really struggled, and we're used to Notice being a good opponent, but they've been decimated by injuries to the point where they're playing a lot of freshmen and have had to totally retool what they do. Their only loss this year came to Cami, which is a good program and a 2A school, 44-16. Oh, we're going to find out. We're going to find out what type of team Council is these next 2 weeks, Paul, because they are at Tri-Valley and then they host Garden Valley. Those are the other teams that are undefeated right now in that Long Pin Conference.
And so they could come out smelling like roses. They can come out being middle of the pack. I mean, those two teams are very good, and they have them back to back. But one thing that Council always is tough. I mean, they're just always tough, strong, big kids that play hard. Nice kids. It's a great community that's behind them. So coming out, and same with the others, Garden Valley, Tri-Valley, we have friends at all those places. But that game, one of the many that we talked about this week, is going to really tell how a team plays. Like you said, it's been a pretty light schedule so far, minus Cami, which they lost. But going into Tri-Valley and then hosting Garden Valley, it's going to be telling. I mean, this is one of the umpteen games that we're all going to be looking at, 6A through 1A. I know Will Hennicky is going to be he might even go to that game. I don't know where he's going to be, but he might be there.
I think in this matchup, Council and Tri-Valley, I think Tri-Valley has the most dynamic athlete in Jace Wagoner, their quarterback.
I was going to say Yoakum is probably the most dynamic athlete that's going to be on the field.
That's a good James Yoakum, freshman for Council. But Jace Wagoner, quarterback for Tri-Valley, is very dynamic. But Council has the edge in depth and strength. Tri-Valley is a team that doesn't have a lot of kids on the roster. Then when they play Garden Valley, Garden Valley can match up dude for dude and also depth for depth. So that Garden Valley game in 2 weeks is going to be a good battle too. But
you get this late in the season, the teams that aren't deep in 8-man start to have problems. Orofino had to cancel their game this week against Grangeville because they were out of players. When I was at Salmon for that Orofino Salmon game, they had 4 guys on the sideline, and that makes it tough when you get some injuries. Grades can be an issue as well. So the 8-man game, if you're deep, that's going to help you go deep into the season and the playoffs.
For sure. Yes. And look at this. We've got James in the chat. Yes. Football, please. He is on the team. Yes. A freshman lineman. Brady Clegg, 3 touchdowns against Horseshoe Bend. Only a freshman. That's very impressive, certainly. And then he's talking about Owen Hatfield, Garrison Zelensky. Obviously, that's a good 1-2 in the passing game. And Wade Vining. That's the guy that's going to be most important, I think, Wade Vining, because he is such a good rusher off the edge on defense. can he contain and bottle up Wagner? Because Wagner likes to get outside the pocket and run. So to me, James, if I'm looking at it just objectively, Wade Vining versus Jace Wagner, that's kind of the matchup I'm looking at. And whoever wins that battle more times than not, I think is going to be that'll help their team win. So
I like it. I like that prediction. That was a great off the cuff description of all that. That's why you are the man. I love it. I wish I was going to be there. That's one of those games that I would love to be at. So maybe if Will's watching this, he can, Mr. Idaho 8-man can be there. But James, isn't school still in session? It's only 2:50.
Maybe he's got a prep period. I love it though. That's what we want to hear from players, coaches. If there is a story, if there's a team, if there's something you want us to talk about, you can send either one of us an email, Brandon at IdahoSports.com. Paul's email address is editor at IdahoSports.com, and send your story ideas over there. We love doing deep dives into teams and players, and we get requests from time to time. So send it there and we'll break it down for you right here on the Treasure Valley Prepcast.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. Oh, he's homeschooled. That makes sense.
Homeschooled. Hey, that's a good way to do it for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to the the Treasure Valley Prepcast. You can tell it's been a long week already. Sheesh. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. For Paul Kingsbury, I'm Brandon Baney, and we will see you next time on IdahoSports.com.